Survivor Specialist Phil and Alexa are back with our finale recap for Survivor Winners at War. And it was an action-packed finale. I did not think that they were going to go the full 3 hours. I know they've been saying the entire time they were going to do the full 3 hours, but I still just never believed they were really going to cut it as close as they did. I mean, Tony literally had 3 seconds to speak after he won. I got to say, I think it's an unbelievably satisfying finish. Tony deserved to win this season. Tony dominated this season. I thought Tony played absolutely phenomenal. But, I mean, we got so much to break down because this is, I mean, saying Tony won does not do justice to the last 3 hours we watched by any means. So go ahead, Alexa. How did you feel?
I'm going to say, and I'm with you, I was like, oh man, are we actually going to have a 3 hour reunion? This felt like a 3 hour reunion and it was worth every single second. It obviously was, especially because of this situation, it totally made sense to not talk to the group. And I know that sucks and maybe that's a bad take, but this felt like such a well expressed story. Ben going home, that would have been 20 minutes. That would have been not nearly as emotional and not nearly as complicated as what we actually saw if we had a reunion. And I know we didn't even get to talk to Natalie and Michelle, and that completely sucks. And I am completely with that. But to me, this felt like a complete finish to this story, and especially a story that so many people felt was fragmented because of the edit. And I feel like this cleaned it up beautifully. So I am incredibly happy with the full 3 hours. The 3 hours flew by. I can't believe it's 11:15 right now. I feel like we got so much. I cried a lot, but that happens always for those of you who've been tuning in for more than
but I
10.
cried a lot too, Alexa, and that doesn't happen always. And I got to say, I was texting one of my...
Right? He has a heart.
I know. Everybody start calling me out now. And I cried 17 times or 16 times tonight. It was the 16 times Michelle's name wasn't read. But no, I actually did. I mean, this was one of those nights it was insanely emotional. I mean, it was one of those things that started off emotional and kept being emotional, and it kept that up the entire time. And like, you're watching some of these people, like, I mean, first of all, we're all in this high stress situation right now. That's just, obviously making it so hard. I mean, I'm expecting, when they announce this season, I'm expecting to be out at a bar right now, not talking to Alexa until tomorrow. And a lot of people, I mean, Carl's supposed to be on my couch right now, and instead I'm in a house that I've never seen before the last 2 months. So like, it's just one of these high stress situations. Then you're sitting here and you're watching, and it's like, you're getting these emotional moments from Ethan and Parvati and even Boston Rob, man. Like, Boston Rob hit me tonight. Like it was so much. And it just goes to show, like, just the show as a whole, like the cast and the characters and everybody that they've put on and what they did with this season. Do I think it's the best season of all time? No, I probably wouldn't even put it in the top 10, and people can give me shit for that all they want. And I really have no problem saying that. But it's one of those things where this type of finale and just how well we know these people. I mean, I've known Ethan since I was 8 years old, and doesn't know, I've known him since I was 8 years old. And so it's just a really cool emotional moment to be able to see this guy like 20 years later go through what he's going through. And like, I don't know, like it just hit me in like every way that it could. And I mean, the Tony and Sarah thing, I did not think I'd get that emotional over that, but that hit me. Even Ben and Sarah, two people who a lot of people do not love. They're not the most cuddly people in the world. That was an insanely emotional moment. So I don't know.
You're saying that Ben's post Ponderosa beard did not look cuddly?
No, that was amazing. I gotta say, so I'm gonna shave my beard exactly the way Ben did as soon as this quarantine is over. As soon as I can go back to California, which might be never, but as soon as I go back to California, I'm shaving my beard exactly how Ben shaved his.
Oh man, but I'm completely with you, and I think Ben, this was the perfect end to Ben's story. And Ben is someone who both of us have critiques throughout the season, and many people have said significantly worse things. But throughout Ben's 2 seasons, and he even gives a nod to Michelle. He says, as a fellow controversial winner, I get why you won. I thought that was a really cool moment. And this showed so much growth. And Ben came into, I'm really excited to watch the beginning of this season again, because Ben's saying, I need to focus on my relationships. And you see that get lost along the way. And then at the end, he struggles with getting rid of Denise, and he ends up allowing Sarah to get rid of him so that she can have that like last stab at winning. I some people would call it quitting. I think, I think Ben's won before. He won it fair and square. He probably knew he didn't have a chance to win this. And he and Sarah were tight. And I completely support him doing that. And it makes it even more heartbreaking the way that Sarah then goes out 30 minutes later. And Tony not being able to look at Sarah was just the worst. That was just so incredibly tough to watch. And it made for a really, really well wrapped up finale. It's, even the way that Denise went home, that's the only one that I can't even use the word rush, I guess felt like slightly unexplained, but I felt like most of her story was. And I would say kind of the same case with Michelle, and Michelle not getting a single vote tonight to Natalie's 4 is definitely something worth discussing. Whether or not you're a Michelle fan, I think that just really says a lot about Edge of Extinction and its influence on this season.
And I think what I said, and I'll just give myself credit because that's who deserves it all. But I think what I said in our predictions episode with Troyzan came true. The people who are going to vote Michelle over Tony had better relationships with Natalie than they had with Michelle because Natalie was on Edge of Extinction with them. Parvati voted for her. Jeremy voted for her. Jeremy, see, the problem with, Jeremy votes Natalie. Jeremy votes Natalie. It is what it is. The problem with Jeremy voting Natalie is that was not because of this season. That was not anything to do with anything that's happened in the last 5 years. That is because they played together the first time and became really good friends after that. Like, that has nothing to do with what happened on this season. So Jeremy was going to vote for Natalie anytime Natalie's in the final 3, and Natalie's going to vote for Jeremy anytime she was in the final 3. So like those types of votes, and then Tyson did it, and it makes sense that Tyson did it because Tyson and Natalie clearly bonded over on Edge of Extinction. I mean, they talked about it a lot. So
her buying him that idol, I think that bought the vote.
And you know what? That's a smart strategic move. That's something that's more than just bonding because you're bonding. Like, that's a real strategic move and a good move by Natalie to ensure she gets his vote. Mm-hmm. I just think I believe that had it not been Tony in the final 3, had it been like Michelle, Natalie, and somebody else, I think a lot of the people who actually voted for Tony probably vote for Michelle because I think a lot of them were never going to vote for Natalie. Oh, it was a lot of the old schoolers. It's kind of what Troyzan said. A lot of the old schoolers seemed like they were the ones who wanted to vote for Natalie over Tony or Michelle. I think that had Tony not been there and had it been Sarah and Michelle, I still think Natalie probably gets her 4 votes, but I don't think she gets any more than that. Like, I think Natalie hit her max tonight, whereas depending on who was sitting in that 3rd seat would have changed how many votes Michelle would have gotten, maybe how many votes Sarah would have gotten had she gotten in there, how many votes Ben would have gotten. I don't think that Michelle lost to Natalie tonight. Like, there's no doubt about that, but I don't think that Michelle loses to Natalie if Tony's not sitting there, because Tony, without a doubt, 150% played a better game than Michelle, and there's no arguing that. Mm-hmm. And anybody who was going to vote for one of the 2 people who didn't go to Edge was going to vote for Tony every single time. Had that been Sarah, Denise, or Ben, I think there's a very real likelihood that Michelle would have gotten votes. Natalie was never getting more than the 4 she got.
I think also if it's a different Edge of Extinction returning, I think that also completely changes it. I think, the benefit that Natalie had is that she was there really early, and she or someone else made the point that she was making rice for everybody. She got to be the queen of Ponderosa from the start. And so I think if it's Jeremy or if it's Nick, I guess I'll use Jeremy as an example. I don't think Jeremy gets Ethan's vote. And I don't think Jeremy gets, maybe, I don't know if Jeremy gets Tyson's vote because he was in the game longer and Ethan was out longer. So definitely a lot of combinations there, but so is Jeremy, Tyson, Ethan, and Parvati who voted for Natalie, correct?
If it's not Natalie sitting there, or if it's not Natalie and Michelle sitting there, there is no doubt in my mind Parvati and Jeremy both vote for Michelle. But because Natalie was there, and Parvati, if you really think about it, who was she closer with in the real game of Survivor? Michelle. But they bonded so much on Edge of Extinction. And I had a real problem with something Parvati said tonight, and I'll take the shit for it. But when she said the thing about Natalie, where she said, it's great to be around you because you don't put on an act. You just say you say it like it is. And it's like, yeah, no shit. She's not playing Survivor. So that's the end of my little rant there. But you can say it how it is when you don't have to worry about being voted off. And all you have to do is win a challenge to get back into the game. But that's the extent of that.
Right. I think, and with everything leading up to this finale, but then actually watching it, at the end of the day, that is this season's game, Edge of Extinction. So we can't just say, oh, well, it's a bullshit twist, because it is a bullshit twist, but it's in the game. That doesn't diminish what Natalie did. It's just a completely different game of Survivor. And, I'll say this, Ben gets kind of stuck. Ben and Denise get kind of stuck in that Victoria spot. And Victoria made a really good point tonight. She said, Natalie never went home. Oh God, I'm not going to word this right. Natalie always had immunity. And the only time she didn't have immunity is when she went home.
Yeah.
And, that's a handicap, I think. So
well, and that's more of like where I get into it. Like, and look, like the people who were there, they voted, and like we always say, like whoever wins, and Tony deserved to win this, and we're now really just more talking about second place. But to me, it's just one of those things where like you cannot tell me with a straight face that Natalie Anderson had played a better game of Survivor, not better at surviving, but a better game of Survivor than Michelle played. Like, because Michelle plays Survivor, and I think Victoria's point is 100% right. The one time Natalie could go home this entire season, she did. The other three times that she went to Tribal tonight, she had some form of immunity. And I'm fine with her getting the one for Final Six. I'm okay with that. She earned that, okay? She earned that by getting the logs and doing everything. Like, I totally respect that. And these are not knocks on Natalie. Again, it goes back to the same thing of like, Chris Underwood, do I think he's the best winner? No, but like good for him for exploiting the twist that's in the game.
That idol that she found in Final Five, she found that.
And that's my biggest problem. It's not that she found it. They need to stop re-hiding idols at Final Five. They need to stop.
They do. Every week. They completely do. But I don't think that's fair to knock on her.
No, I don't. No. And I'm not knocking on Natalie. I'm more knocking on just like the state that we've gotten to. Like Natalie's Final Six idol, she earned that, and like good for her. And like she worked 33 days to get that idol. It's that other one that gets thrown in at Final Five. Like, why couldn't we have just had a pure vote at Final Five? Imagine it was just a pure
vote. That's gotta go.
And honestly, what I did like about tonight's episode, and I texted you right after the first challenge, which I didn't know you weren't watching live. My bad. But what I did like about tonight's episode is that in the grand scheme of things, the advantages that Natalie had ended up leveling out, and the idol that she got ended up being useless at Final Five. Even though she played it for herself to make herself immune, I do like that it didn't actually save her, because nobody was willing to give her those moves as her moves to get votes at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's go chronological now. Going back to the reentry challenge, like you said, once Jeff started laying out the challenge, I really thought that final advantage was going to be that one of the two balls was already in the hole, and that to me would have felt unfair. Would have been unfair. I think having part of that rope bridge already built out, that's definitely an advantage, but it's such an awkward thing to crawl through. And we saw the way that Natalie won that challenge. We really saw how those advantages didn't work, because the first one, she may as well not have used it, and then could just buzz through when she had the second advantage.
Yeah, and obviously that these advantages definitely helped Natalie and are part of the reason why she won this challenge. But what I enjoyed about this is the fact that Wendell was actually winning. Once all of the advantages were done, Wendell was winning. And Tyson was, Natalie did not win this challenge by 20 minutes because she had all of these advantages. Like, Natalie botched that opening part because I think the pressure got to her there, where it was like, I have a lead and I can't do it. And, there's 17 or 16 people there, whatever it is, 14 people. I can't count that high. But however many people are over there, there were 7 people who were in it at the end. Yul was in it. Tyson was in it. Boston Rob was in it. Wendell was in it. It was a good challenge. And I'm glad, like, yes, if Natalie does not have those advantages, she does not get back into the game. But the fact that those advantages weren't such overwhelming advantages, like you said, having a ball already in there made it so that I was like, okay, I can deal with this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I really thought Wendell had that in the bag. He was looking really, really good. Tough. That seemed like a tough challenge. The beginning part that Natalie skipped, that's always something where I'm like, oh, I actually feel like I could do that well. And then I watch someone trip and almost break their nose, and I'm like, yeah, it's a toughie.
Yeah, I know. And I don't know. I don't know if I could do like any of those things. I had no patience. So That challenge would not be for me. But, that challenge happens. And again, like right after that, we got all of those really, really emotional moments, which were great. I loved it. And yeah.
I mean, to me, highlighted that is Amber calling everyone the F out and saying, y'all, like, no one ever respected me because everyone thinks that I won because everyone hated my husband. And I was like, she said it and I love it. And whether or not it's true, I'm glad it's put out there. And that's kind of a conversation that, the two were pretty separate, but that's something that really kind of followed this entire finale. I guess, now we can move on to Sarah's big moment at the final 6 vote. And this is what ends up getting rid of Ben. And maybe like you make the argument, this is how Tony won too. So I thought it was really cool. Not really cool. That's the wrong word. I thought it was really good of Sarah to bring that up, and good on Natalie for totally stirring the pot. And she didn't even need to lie. What she said was true, that the jury was in love with Tony. But the tough part, and this is, I think, why Boston Rob ended up voting for Tony instead of Natalie, she put the target on Tony, but he's sitting right there next to her. So at the end of the day, she couldn't get it done. And I think that was the whole problem. But really, really going backwards here, that really opened Sarah's eyes. And that's something that, us and Troyzan were critical of when we were talking last week. And that's something that everyone was saying, like, how could you possibly think you can't get rid of Tony, or you can beat Tony? And then she sees that and then really kicks it into gear and then goes out, I guess, the fairest way she can.
Yeah. And so let's talk about this final 6 here, because I thought and this is, I thought Tony just plays everything so perfectly. Like Tony is such a, like, he's the king. People can shoot me for it, but I know Sandra got the better of him.
I don't think that.
No. What I'm about to say is he's the best player of all time, and people can shoot me for it. Sandra got the best of him in Game Changers, but
I don't think anybody's gonna argue.
You know how many times Tony's name got written down this season?
Phil, literally everyone on earth is about to agree with you.
No, I'm glad, but I'm just saying, like, it's one of those things, like, when you put that into perspective, the game that Tony plays, he got no votes. That's absurd. Like, how does that happen? And
after Natalie drops that bomb.
After Natalie came back in. And that's what I wanted to say. Like, at this final 6, Denise ends up going home anyway, which is what Tony wanted. But Tony wanted to keep his idol. He wanted to keep Ben's idol so that it would have to be Michelle or Natalie at that next vote, which they didn't know Natalie was going to find another idol. And Natalie probably doesn't find another idol if Tony and Ben don't have to play theirs, because there's no way, I don't think they're going to hide an idol to make 3 at final 5. But anyway, besides that whole thing, the way he was just like, guys, she probably has an idol. We should split the votes 2-2-2. We don't even have to worry about it then. We make sure it's Denise. If we got to get rid of Denise. And Ben and Sarah played so much with their hearts and so much with their emotion. And it just shows, like, the type of player Tony is. He is so good. I mean, you saw him breaking down when he had to vote out Sarah. Like, that killed him. And yet he still has the ability to say, I got to take a step back. And guys, we have to think logically here. And when she played that idol, you could see a look on his face of like, guys, what the hell? Like, why?
He was like, I told you. And they're like, I know.
I know. And it was so good. And I do think that Michelle and Natalie made the right move here. And I know that that's going to be controversial, but I do think they made the right move here because of Sarah's whole speech. And this is another thing. Like, do I think Sarah meant her speech? Absolutely. Sarah, like, that is something that's been weighing on Sarah forever. But I also think about 5% of that was gameplay to be like, ladies, keep me instead of Denise if this situation comes to it, and I'll vote with you to vote somebody out next, which she does, and we'll talk about it final 5. But I think that, like, if you're Michelle and Natalie, you hear that whole speech about wanting to bring women to the end and feeling like, the women are always undervalued because the men are allowed to make the moves and they're not considered assholes, but the women are considered bitches. And for her to be able to say all of that, like, most people are probably sitting there going, why would you not get rid of Sarah? You got to break up Sarah and Tony. But after that kind of speech, I think you have to vote Denise off. And I think voting Denise off is absolutely the right move.
Yeah. And Sarah ends up, I mean, you see that. Well, if you take Tony out of the spy nest, that conversation that Natalie and Sarah had, Sarah's a really good bullshitter. I mean, I was believing it. And that's, I'm completely with that. And I think Sarah, again, as much as part of that was gameplay, maybe this is the opposite of the Chinese food incident. That clearly is something that's been bothering her. And I'm really glad that a lot of winners were able to like call out the bullshit that they got. Like Michelle got to do it, Ben got to do it, Sarah got to do it. Kim did the opposite where she was like, I used to be so amazing and now I'm not, which was really a nice switch. But I hope that Sarah is given the respect that she deserves. I think Sarah is one of the best players to ever play this game. And as much as I wish that the end was Tony versus Sarah, it would have almost been too tough for them to actually go up, or like as a viewer, it would have been too tough for them to go up against each other at the final tribal. It felt better for them to have to just shoot each other the way that they did.
As Tony said, you really want to shoot me now? Seriously? But no, I agree. And you know, I think that like the way that they play is always loyal. And it's something I want to ask you here though, about this final five, because you're talking about like how Sarah is able to really convince people. And I believe that Sarah might've beaten Tony tonight, and people are not going to agree with that. But with
that story, with the way she was shaping up, I think she could have.
And I think Ben doing what he did was because Ben knew he had no chance of winning and would rather see Sarah win than Natalie, Michelle, or Tony. And that's no disrespect to Tony. He would just rather see Sarah win. He had a better relationship with Sarah. And I think a lot of people would have felt that way about Sarah on the jury. One thing I want to say about, go ahead.
I was going to say, off the top of my head, without even thinking, Ben and Sophie and Tony immediately vote for Sarah.
Immediately. And one thing I want to just bring up for kind of what on the topic of what you were saying, it should be Lucina, but going out of order a little bit, what made me happiest about tonight's finale is that the jury, even though there was a little bitterness, was not bitter. Like there were some moments where Jeremy said his like, what about me? What about me? Like there were some moments, but those are just normal like conversation moments. That's not real bitterness. That's not like I'm not voting for you because of this. I like that they all just, nobody ripped on Michelle and said you tried to ride coattails. Nobody ripped on Natalie and said you played for 4 days and didn't even vote out Tony. Nobody ripped on Tony for being a person who just backstab. They all took their shots, and they all and all three of the people had to take their blows. But I appreciated just how everybody respected it so much. And like, for somebody even like Jeff, who was always kind of down on certain winners' wins, I think this season probably taught him a lot about it doesn't matter how you win. Like the right person wins, because every winner out there could understand. Like when Ben said, Michelle, I understand why you won your season. He still didn't vote for her, but it's that little bit of respect that like there's no vote, but it's like, I get it. Like I get it. And all the people who don't get it, it doesn't matter because they're not here. They watched it on TV. They didn't experience it the way we all experienced it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wondered how that would come in, or how that would happen, especially with one, this gigantic jury, and two, this jury of winners. I think it also helps that a lot of these winners have lost before and have played before, but this is what I wanted. I didn't want this jury to just come in and absolutely roast all three of them. That isn't what this season should have been. This whole season was about a celebration. And I think it's really, really great to see them kind of pumping each other up. And like you said, taking the necessary shots, but by no means going out of the way to knock on Natalie or Michelle or Tony at all. And I wasn't sure if that would be the case, because they have all won before, but I think because they've all experienced the difficulty of being in Final Tribal, I think that really made them respect that Final Three.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think of like how I want to word this, but it just makes me happy. Like if we don't know anything about season 41, the extent of what we know about season 41 is that Jeff oddly said 16 and 17-year-olds can apply. And I'm sitting here going, what the hell's going on? Like, what is my future of Survivor? It makes me happy that Jeff isn't ready.
You're like the old man. You're like Tom Laidlaw.
I'm just confused. I'm just so confused. So like, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, he's like 16, 17, 18-year-olds apply, which the 17-year-olds applying I get, because I feel like
be 18 when they play.
You can be 18 when you go. 16 was extremely confusing to me. And then I totally missed the families and cool parents situation.
It was weird. And I almost feel like what their backup plan might be right now, and this is totally just guessing, and this is getting a little sidetracked, but I don't care because, hey, the future of Survivor is important. I almost feel like what they might be planning is if they can't go to Fiji, doing something local where because of like American law, I guess the age of 16 is considered like an age where like you're not an adult, but you can start legally making some of your own decisions. And maybe they're thinking like they can do some sort of family oriented thing to kind of get past some of these quarantines or whatever's going on. That's all I'm thinking. But it's a weird moment that really, really confused me. And what the point I kind of wanted to make is if this was, which it won't be because Jeff was very adamant and all of that, but if this was the last episode of Survivor we ever saw, that would be the most sad. That would be the ending. Oh, can't say it because to you and me it means something, but to everybody else they're going to say F you. But that would be like the ending of Lost. It would just be so satisfying. It would piss off 90% of people that it ended the way it did. But I would be so satisfied because like this to me felt like a wrapping up. Like I'm 28 years old. Yeah, I know I look like I'm 85 because of my beard and stuff, but I'm 28 years old. And like this felt like such a wrapping up of like such a huge part of my life. And I've never played the freaking game. But like it felt like such a wrapping up of it. Like when Sarah said, if this is how I have to go out, this is how my Survivor career ends. I'm glad it ended at the hands of Tony. It's like, who said your Survivor career was over? Like you probably get asked to play again. Like what are you talking about? But it was those types of moments. And I just feel like we're going to have a season 41, but despite the fact that this is not my favorite finale or anything by those means, it just had one of those feelings that like hit you and was like, if I have to have this gap in my life now where I don't know when Survivor's coming back, I'm so glad that like this is how it kind of wrapped up. Like it was just so emotionally satisfying.
I'm totally with you. And I think this was such a weird way to end because there's been this, this potential ominous abyss coming after tonight. And there's obviously a lot of confidence, and I love that. And like you said, I think them doing something local is probably really realistic, especially with, not being able to go to and from other countries. But after every finale, I'm always feeling this sense of nostalgia and this like absolute love for the game. And like you throw out a video right after that. But this one was almost so sad because we couldn't celebrate with the whole cast and we couldn't see Jeff except for his absolutely fantastic sideburns, which my friend called out and I couldn't unsee after that. But this one it left me feeling so satisfied, but also left me feeling so sad because I don't want this to be the way it goes. But I don't think it ends this way, but I think, I don't remember what it was like when season 20 had wrapped up. I was a fan, but I wasn't a part of the community whatsoever. So I wonder if there was that same sense of like wanting more of this manifest destiny of wanting more Survivor. And this wrapped it up well. And I'm really glad Tony's gorgeous kitchen is the last thing that I saw.
I know. And
moly, that's a great kitchen.
Amazing kitchen. And two things with that. After season 20 ended, nobody was as desperate because there's never this feel that Survivor was going to end. And also like we weren't in the middle of a worldwide crisis when season 20 ended. I mean, I was in the middle of a crisis because I was about to go to college and I was leaving my hometown. And, everybody knows that's a huge crisis. But this is like a worldwide thing that like it's just so hard to see the future. But as our buddy here, Once Upon an Island, says, as long as they wrap filming in August, they can get 41 up in the fall. And like, based on what Jeff was saying tonight, they're going to do everything in their power to get this up for the fall. And like, look, maybe the 16 and 17-year-olds is just to get people into the system because obviously there's going to be a batch of 18-year-olds that need to play Survivor at some point. And if you're 16 now, you could be 18 in 2 years and Survivor says, hey, we really liked your first video and whatever your story has become. But yeah, I think this is the key right here. And you know what? If they're filming still, even if they don't wrap filming in August, even if they're still filming in September, they can still edit as they go. That is something that is possible. So, that's where I stand on that. And
all you Edgic people, buckle up.
And big news coming later from Once Upon an Island. So
we
got big news for everybody, but we'll save that for a little bit. That's your tease, everybody. So now you have to stay till the end.
41, who knows when that's coming, but we have some good stuff to fill the air. So
yeah. And Alexa, I have to ask you this question now. So back to Final Five. Tony's up in his spy nest. Sarah and Natalie are having their conversation. Sarah spots Natalie's idol. Do you think Natalie did that on purpose?
Definitely.
Okay, good. So
totally did that on purpose. And I think this is one of those moments where as a viewer, we're like, Natalie, you came so close. If Tony's on that spy nest, or if Sarah and Natalie are talking and Sarah actually is open to conversation, Natalie couldn't have played that better. That was quote unquote discreet enough, but it almost could be a wink. Like it's a little bit, and it's literally showing your hand and just saying like, hey, here's a bargaining chip. And I'm always the one to say, like, never tell anyone you have an idol. But at this late in the game, and especially when you're in a position that Natalie or Michelle were in, that's how you flip someone. You have that. And Natalie having that means Tony doesn't. So that, that's something that would have normally convinced someone in the Sarah position. But obviously Sarah had other plans. I think it was completely planned. She put it right
there. It's too easy, especially when before that she had put it in her shoe so nobody would see it. It was just too good. And I think she did it on purpose. However, Natalie's game ended that night when they went to Tribal, because by playing the idol for herself, like I always say this, and Boston Rob actually summed it up best when he voted for Tony. Told you had to play a perfect game, but you almost did, but you didn't. Mm-hmm. Natalie did two things tonight that ultimately resulted in her not being able to win this game. And she still gets second place, and great for her. But the final five playing the idol for herself and not Michelle, even though she could take the credit and say, I convinced Sarah to vote off Ben. Like I did that, even though she didn't. And we know Ben and Sarah had their moment, but because she could have that conversation and say, I convinced Sarah, then why did you feel the need to play your idol? And also you played it for the wrong person. Had you, like, you clearly didn't feel confident enough that you had convinced Sarah. And if you did know if you didn't know, like, if you weren't confident in Sarah, at least you could have figured out who the votes were going towards. And she picked the wrong person. And I think that's when her game completely ended and she no longer had a chance to win this season of Survivor, was when she played that idol for herself instead of Michelle, and two votes came up with Michelle's name on them. And I did love Tony's face though when Ben ended up getting voted out. He was absolutely floored. He had no idea that was coming.
Totally shocked, completely shocked. And part of me is like, okay, you're at the final five. The only person you should be playing an idol for is yourself. But with Natalie's position where every single thing needed to be crystal clear, perfect, that wasn't.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, at final four, I think she made a big mistake by not giving up her immunity. And we talked about this in our predictions with Troyzan, and I thought Michelle was going to win final four immunity and take Natalie. But instead, Natalie wins and takes Michelle. And to me, it's just like, you got to play for broke. It's Survivor winners at war. You got to go for broke. Even if you don't think you can win that fire making challenge, sit down against Tony and try to make fire. Or put Michelle up against Tony, because Michelle was showing how good she was at making fire. Put Michelle up against Tony and get Tony out of the game. But to put Sarah up against Tony, all you do is build the heart and the emotional story for the two of them. You do nothing for yourself. And ultimately, it just leaves Michelle with no chance to prove herself, because in an editing, she's like, Michelle's great at making fire.
Oh,
I guess I froze. I knew it. But it could have been an editing trick that says Michelle's great at making fire. Maybe she was really great at making fire. We'll never know. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the jury never saw Michelle have to make fire.
Right.
So they don't care. And Michelle doesn't get to prove herself. All you did was whoever won that Sarah Tony situation is getting this huge emotional storyline going into the final three.
Yeah, and for all of those who roasted me live last week when I said that Michelle could have won a fire-making challenge, or in my fan fiction, she does win a fire-making challenge, she looked like she was slaying it. And to me, as soon as I saw that Tony was sucking at making fire, I was like, he's probably going to end up winning this. Because I have a feeling, I'll have to look back on previous fire-making episodes, but I feel like they always show the winner not being good at making fire. But you could see, and to me, the moment Michelle lost the game is actually because of something that was completely out of her control. Natalie picking her to go to the end. Michelle was pissed. And I get that. I think Michelle knew how she was perceived. I think Michelle knew that Tony and Sarah had no interest in going to the end with her. And Michelle was winning immunities at the end, which she always comes up clutch in these situations. But for her to be taken, even though that isn't a guaranteed loss, with the stakes that they were, she needs to be able to show it. And it sucks that it was not in her hands, because I think if she wins that final immunity challenge, she takes it off and she does fire. I bet Michelle would have done that.
Even if she didn't, though, see, here's the difference, though. If Michelle wins that final immunity challenge, she doesn't necessarily need to make fire, because she won immunity at final 6. She wins immunity at final 4. She can sit down at that final tribal council and say to every single one of them, I should have gone home every week. Like, I know that my name wasn't coming up, but I never had the numbers. And so I had to win immunities late. And those immunity necklaces do carry a lot of weight. If Michelle wins at final 4 and takes Natalie, some of those people who voted for Natalie probably vote for Michelle, because they sit there. I still think Jeremy votes for Natalie, but I would not be surprised if you would have seen Ethan and Parvati vote for Michelle, because Michelle took Natalie to the end. Or maybe Michelle gets some of the votes from over there, or Michelle could do something even ballsier and take Tony to the end with her. Like, we've talked about this a lot, but I know you want to get the best player out, but sometimes putting the best player in the position to prove how good of a player they are is the worst thing you can do. And it's what Dom did with Wendell, and why Wendell was on the season and not Dom. And it's exactly, I think, what happened tonight by Natalie saying, I'm going to take Michelle because I think she's the easiest to beat, and I'm going to have Sarah and Tony fight off against each other. You're surrendering to second place. Whereas I think if Michelle wins at final 4, if she takes Natalie and puts Sarah and Tony up against each other, she still probably gets second place. But I think it's a lot closer, and she can say, I chose to do that. I did everything I needed to do to get here. My back was against the wall the whole time. Why should I have had to put myself in a position where I could have lost again, when this whole game I've been in that position? I've had to find a way to get to a position of power, and I finally got it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, that's true. I think with the way this finale shaped up, unless I think she was at the end with Ben and Denise, it didn't look like Michelle had any chance of winning. But like we said earlier, I'm really glad that she got the respect that she deserved. And that was her whole storyline this season. And her closing arguments felt so similar to her closing arguments in Co-Wrong. I remember she was crying and she said, I don't really care what you guys think, but I'm really proud of myself. And she said that same thing. She was like, I'm really proud of how I played. And that's that, no matter how they played the previous 38 days, that's a tough thing to argue.
It is. It absolutely is. And I think tonight was a rare occasion where this wasn't the Gabby situation in 37, where it's like, I'm going to go vote and I'm going to cry and it's going to be a hard time. I think a lot of these people struggled with this, because you have to keep in mind, some of these players, and I know not necessarily the people in the final 3, because they're all newer school players. You had season 29 represented, season 28 represented, and season 32 represented. But some of these people have known each other for 17, 18 years. They've known each other for so long. How do you, let's say you and I go out there and we play Survivor on the same season. How at the end, if one of us is sitting in the final 3, and even if we played the worst game imaginable, like we played Will Sims on steroids to the extent that there's no reason you should be sitting there, but we've known each other so long, how do you remove that from the equation? And I think what you saw tonight, you can't. And I think you saw that a lot tonight with Ethan is a genuinely good person who wants to see the people he likes win. And he didn't know Tony, but he knew Natalie and he really liked Natalie. And Parvati, same way. The old school mentality is so different. And I think that's kind of what drew me into this finale, and the really good moments of this finale is that a lot of it felt old school. Tony and Sarah's breakdown is seasons 1 through 10. That is what Survivor was built on, is these moments where when somebody gets voted out, as a viewer and as the players, we're all so devastated together that we're like, this sucks. Nothing about Dan Fuego has to go home tonight. Okay. That's all, those types of moments though, where it's a really difficult decision for people. I feel like those moments have been manufactured in recent seasons, whereas tonight we saw real emotion and real tears and everything from these people. And, I mean, I respect who everybody voted for at the end of the day. I mean, you're going to vote for Natalie. It's who you wanted to vote for. It is what it is. I respect it. But so many of those people, I feel like it was 1A, 1B, and 1C. There was no number 2. It was picking hairs and who do we actually want to represent our season more than necessarily who do we think should win. I think that's a big factor in this finale.
I think so too. And pregame alliances are something that, I was definitely concerned about would not screw up this game, but just really, really affect it. And I think because a lot of the old school people went home early, and that's not to say that the old school people are the only ones doing pregame alliances, because clearly everybody was, but it didn't have as much of an effect as, unless I'm wrong, it didn't have as much as effect as I thought it would. And like you said, it felt more old school. It felt more pure. And these are people who they've all won before. They've all been respected. They've all been disrespected. And so I think that gave them all a real appreciation for each other. And I think for a new cast, that probably happens after the game. But for this group, they all went into it together. And I feel like that's a sentiment that carried throughout the season.
Well, and I think every single one of them had a chip on their shoulder. Yes, Robert G.
Robert, I'm only doing this because you asked Phil too, so I'm going to do it.
Who is Robert G? I don't know who that is.
I don't know.
But like, I think that every single one of these winners, all the way back from Ethan, all the way up to Nick Wilson, none of them have won the game of Survivor and just been told, yes, you deserved it and you played a phenomenal game and you're amazing. Every one of them, even Tony and Sandra, they've lost before. Tyson has lost before. Boston Rob has lost before. Parvati has lost before. They've all had their ups and downs. And so, like, I think they just respect so much what it takes to do like any of this, and like to go out there and go to a final tribal and say, Michelle, you rode coattails, and Natalie, you don't deserve to be there, and Tony, you were just rude to people the entire time and you're a backstabber and whatever, doesn't do them any good, because it's showing that they're resorting to that same thing that previous losers have resorted to. And it takes away from these wins. There was no way, if anybody's going to rip on Tony and say Tony didn't deserve that win, it's not going to be because of a quote that they heard from the jury. It's going to be because of their own just mental space that they feel Tony didn't win. It's not going to be because of anything from anybody out there in Fiji.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm someone who, I'm really not into the new jury format, because obviously, at the end of the day, we still didn't get to hear from half of them. One reason is because Sophie was dead, ? I completely missed the fact that she had the flu, because I was laughing at her like seemingly lack of caring. She looked so slumped over when people going to vote, and then I saw that she was sick. That sucks. Mm-hmm. Totally sucks.
Terrible. It's brutal. It's absolutely brutal. And yeah, I feel for Sophie big time. I mean, especially like at the end of that type of journey when your body's already hurting so bad, like that's terrible. I mean, Tyson didn't really speak at the end. I don't think Tyson cared. I think Tyson knew he was voting for Natalie. And it's like, Tyson at the end of the day is not one of those people who's just like, sure, this is what we're doing. So I mean, yeah, I'm happy with how this turned out. Do I wish Michelle would have gotten more votes than Natalie? Of course I do. I wish Michelle would have gotten more votes than everybody and won. But I can live with the fact that Michelle is the only player to play on season 40 Winners at War and not be voted out of Survivor. She's the only one who has never been voted out, and that makes me feel pretty damn good.
I believe she's the only multi-season player to never get voted out.
It's a fact.
That is an accomplishment, and that has nothing.
No, Mike Scoopin's the.
You did. Did you? Freeze? Oh my God, she is in. It's her and Mike Scoopin.
That's it, and she sure is in good company. Michelle fantastic. Fitzgerald and Mike Scoopin are the only two players to play more than once and not be voted out.
Well, we should tweet that. That'll get some good
Maybe we shouldn't tweet that. Oh, actually, another good one here. Leah Maloney, Jenna Maraska. Never voted out. So really, Jenna and Michelle are the only.
Colton. Oh my God, I kid that Michelle is in fine company.
Yeah. Okay, but let's give respect to the people who do deserve the respect here. Okay. Michelle and Jenna Maraska are the only two winners to play more than once and not be voted out. And Jenna probably gets voted out of All Stars at some point, but still, that's awesome. I love that.
This group of four right here really is just a treat.
Yeah. Oh my God, Colton. That's amazing. I love that Michelle shares a Survivor feat with Colton and Mike Scoopin. And Jenna Maraska, poor Jenna Maraska, doesn't even get to represent herself on Survivor Winners at War and is in that company. Poor girl.
I
Oh,
can't wait until there's a weird Survivor trivia someday and someone asks what those 4 people have in common.
we got to do a Survivor trivia challenge at some point, because rewatching the old seasons, I feel like that would be something really fun to do for some of our patrons at some point. This is something I'm thinking of on the fly.
Yeah, Survivor trivia that's good. Yeah, we got to think about that. That's a really good idea.
Yeah, I think it would be really fun. Who's the only person in I don't know how many seasons? Oh no, who's the only person in Survivor history to never have their name written down and not go home because of a fire making challenge or win the game?
Okay, can you say that again? That was a lot of negatives.
Okay. So here's the thing. This I gotta actually think of how to word this question. There is one player in Survivor history prior to the fire making challenge being instituted at Final Four. So in the first 34 seasons, it's actually in the first 36 seasons, I think, until Kara Kay comes in. But in the first 34 seasons of Survivor, there is one player who never once had their name written down either to win or to lose, and did not go home or and did not win the game of Survivor or sit in final 3. Like, and it's not Sugar, because Sugar ends up playing in Heroes Villains and gets a lot of votes. This person literally never once got a vote in the history of Survivor.
Not counting Jonathan and Wanda.
Well, no, those don't count. I mean, they were technically voted out.
What? Because Sugar played in Heroes versus Villains.
And she ends up getting votes. And here it is. Call me X, Pascal. Never got a vote.
I should have known this from Marquesas.
And that's what's so amazing, though. It was one of those things, like, I just went on the Survivor wiki and I was like, Pascal never once got a vote in Survivor Marquesas, the oldest player on that season, and then doesn't win, doesn't go to Final 2, doesn't get any votes there. That's an unbelievable fact. I mean, that's unreal. So anyway, yeah, or that's what it was. That's what the actual thing is. And I know it's not over here, but it was, who is the only person to be eliminated at Tribal Council without quitting that never had their name written down in their entire season. That's what it was. So he was eliminated at Tribal Council without ever having his name written down. And it's him.
I was going to say Serene Game Changers, but she played other times.
And then that was the next time it happened was Serene Game Changers in that season. She never had her name written down, was removed at Tribal Council without getting a vote. And then the next time it happened was Kara, because Kara made fire, never got a vote that season, and was removed at Tribal Council. So it ended up happening 3 times, but that's an insane thing that Pascal, it took 30 seasons for another thing like that to happen. And don't worry, if we do a Survivor Trivia Challenge, I'll actually learn how to write friggin' questions so that we don't all sit here and have like brain issues because of me trying to word
Didn't
stuff.
Not vote, receive. Okay. But no, this is a good idea. I'm going to write that down for us to talk about.
Yeah, I like it. And I mean, maybe now we can talk about what we have coming up. I mean, we're already at like 48 minutes. I know we talked about most of the season. I mean, we talked about Final 3, we talked about 6, 5, and 4. We got exciting things on the horizon. I mean, we've been out to a lot of people who aren't necessarily just Survivor players. We've been out to other people who I think we have some pretty good content with for sure coming up. But there's kind of one big one that we're really excited about. I wish I was like Jeff Probst and I could say, here's a look. But we have something that we're really excited about that we're going to start the first week of June. Alexa, what's the actual date?
We are going to start it on, as I pull up a thing, we are going to start on Tuesday, June 2nd, which is conveniently 5 days before my birthday. Not that anyone's keeping track.
And Kelly Wentworth's birthday.
Kelly Wentworth's birthday. Mine is second most important. I'm going to let Phil pull this up on his screen. We are going to partner up with our dear friend who's in the chat right now, not intern, Once Upon an Island. We are going to team up with him, and we are doing a 10-part series about every single winner from season 1 to season 40. So we're going to be talking about Tony twice. And let me see if I can add this up to the screen.
Oh, you can add it. Okay, cool. There you go. This is our first episode.
Yes. So what we're doing a 10-part series every single Tuesday night. Ideally, obviously, this could change as our schedules change. But what we're going to do is we're going to analyze 4 winners per episode. Again, season 1 to season 40, and we're going to talk about all of their winning strategies, how they've changed, the people who have won twice. We're going to talk about them, those who have lost. It's going to be really, really great. We are super excited to work with him on this. And obviously, you guys know that we are not very good at graphic design. So he's the one who made this up. We're going to call this the winning strategy. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a hashtag and let you guys kind of tweet along with us. So we'll do, hashtag winning strategy Borneo, et cetera, et cetera. Again, we're going to be releasing these every Tuesday night starting June 2nd. So follow along. We're going to promote this plenty, but we are super, super excited to work with him on this. This is going to be a great project. And, it's the way that this is timing up, this will go through August. So for those of you who are thirsty for off-season content, we are here for you.
Yes. And now, Alexa, tell me when it's taken down so I can hit escape. I can't see my screen.
Well, that's because I didn't. Okay, it is taken down.
Okay, cool. And what's really exciting about this, so we're going to start off and we're going to say, we're going to start with Borneo going straight through to Marquesas in our first episode. The next one will be Thailand to All-Stars. And we're really excited for this. We were trying to think when we were talking about this with Once Upon an Island, we were trying to think what's something that we both do. And if you haven't checked out Once Upon an Island's channel, check it out. He does stories. I know he put in our chat here, he's got one big planned for Tony's win. He's got a really big one planned. He did a great one on Boston Rob, and he was doing it in order. And we're like, how can we do something that takes your storytelling and kind of what we do, which is discussing Survivor. We don't just sit here and do top 5s or top 10s. We'll do it every now and then, but for the most part, we want to do deep dives into Survivor as much as we possibly can. And I feel like this is going to be a really, really, really fun project and something that, again, 10 weeks, you're going to have us for 10 weeks. We're going to be talking about things like Brian Heidick and I don't know, Danny's actual win rather than the Danny that unfortunately so many of you only saw this season. It's going to be so much fun, and we're really, really looking forward to it. And we have other things planned as well. That's not the only thing we have planned. These aren't really series, but we do have some, and we do have interviews in the works, and we do already have one that is ready to go. Alexa, I'm taking your job, but I feel like Jeff. Jeff couldn't do this. I feel like I'm Jeff now.
This is crazy. Let's see if you stick the landing.
Okay, so we are super excited. I have to say super excited because that's what Alexa says every single time. And sometimes I hate it and sometimes I love it. But we are super excited to announce that our first interview that we're going to be doing for Survivor Season 40 is Sarah Lacina, Monday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. Yeah, I had to look up the numbers on that because I'm in the awkward mountain, but not mountain time zone where Arizona's on the same time as California, but is not called Pacific time. So I can't handle it, but we're going to have Sarah Lacina on Monday night already. So you guys get amped. And now we have to call her Lacina. I'm not even going to put Sarah up there. For the
just
podcast.
Lacina, exactly. Yeah, Phil, you did pretty well there. When Lacina offered the time, she said it in Central Time, and Phil and I had to text each other, and we were like, to clarify, Central Time is 1 behind me and 1 ahead of. Great, okay, perfect.
Something. So, it's something.
It's great. I do say super excited all the time, but at this point, I can't be like, we're feeling kind of meh about this next person we're having on.
Based on who we might have as our second interview, we should feel pretty meh. So anyway, continue.
I can't wait for him to hear that.
Yeah, I know.
So yeah, it's going to be great. This, to my knowledge, this is the first time that we've ever had an interview booked before the end of the season. Lacina gave us, she gave us some love before some jerks ran her off of Twitter this season. So really, really excited to talk to her. She had quite the finale. It's going to be a great interview this Monday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern time. As Phil mentioned, we're also going to be, we obviously have this huge 10-part series with Once Upon an Island coming up. We have some interviews. We've a couple different interviews planned. We don't want to give you guys a full peek behind the curtain yet, but we're expanding past just Survivor players. We're going to talk to some other people in the community and some people who aren't even in the Survivor community who we think you guys are really going to enjoy. So yeah, it's a potentially long off season, but Phil is completely gone. So now I'm going to talk to just myself. It's a potentially really long off season, but we have been wanting to give you guys a lot of good content. Phil is back. That was really, really nerve-wracking. Glad to have you back, but I kind of just finished up my spiel.
Oh, no, that's fine. And one other thing I wanted to throw in here was in terms of the fantasy game, I'm pretty sure Vaughn won again. He had Tony as the winner. I was second place, Alexa was third, and Intern definitely finished fourth. terrible. In terms of the power rankings game, Alexa, I might have to check my own math here, but did I win?
So I candidly don't understand how to do the math on the power rankings game for the finale. So I am going to have to put that in your hands. I'll have to trust you for all of our $20 patrons. If Phil won, it's because he rigged your
I won. No, I actually won. So the way it works is I had predicted Tony, Michelle, Edge of Extinction, Sarah, Ben, Denise. I got 4 of those spots right. Michelle was off by 1. Edge of Extinction was off by 1. So I lost 2 points, dropping me down to 121. The only other person who had, there were 2 other people who had, one had 122 and one had 121. So these are the only 2 people who could possibly beat me if they had perfect power rankings for this episode. Luke Arnowit had Tony, Michelle, Edge of Extinction, Sarah, Ben, Denise, which is exactly what I had, which means he is going to end up getting the buff. He's going to end up being the winner of our game, even though I won. And then third was Patrick Craig, who had 121 points, but he went Tony, Sarah, Michelle, Edge, Ben, Denise. Too many points there. So I end up winning the power rankings game, which, Alexa, I don't know if you know how monumental this is. This is literally the first time since Will and I started this podcast that any of the 3 of us have won one of the fantasy games.
I'm really happy for you. I'm happy that you're happy. He deserves it, people.
I feel like Tony right now.
Tomorrow.
So Tony got $2 million, and I got to tell 5,000 people that I'm better than them. That feels really good.
5,000 people are watching this recap. Allegedly, according to Caitlin Dillon, who has been doing a fantastic job, we have hit 8,000 YouTube subscribers. Thank you, everyone. Huge accomplishment, but mostly because Phil won the power rankings game.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so Luke Arnowit, reach out to us if you're listening to this, or we'll reach out to you. We'll find you somehow and we'll get you that buff. We'll figure out the scoring for our prop bet game, which I have no idea who's winning that. Alexa has really kept it together this year. I am a lazy bum. I'll use the excuse that it's because I'm getting my master's, but at the end of the day, I've done nothing for my master's in like the last 3 weeks. So I'm lying now. But yeah, we have over 8,000 subscribers, which is a really big deal.
Allegedly, we have 8,100. Who are all of you people? Thank you.
Thank you. And keep doing it, guys. And what I'm super excited about is now I can finally go back to like 15 videos ago and comment to that one guy, haha, we have 8,000 now. So
we need to find that.
We did it.
We need to find that one.
We need to find that comment. But no, this was a really fun season. Alexa and I, we're still planning for more things to do with our patrons. So if you're a $20 patron, we know that the Power Rankings game is really the big sell for us, but we are going to do as much as we can in this off season to try to come up with new and interesting content. Maybe this type of Survivor trivia game is something we can do with our $20 patrons. I feel like a lot of you would enjoy doing that. And you know, we can maybe do like a freaking tournament or something. I don't know. Alexa and I will talk about it, but we're going to come up with ideas for all of you because we had fun with this. We have fun doing this. And right now, with so much unknown, we want to make sure that we're something that is just consistent throughout this offseason, which we don't know how long it's going to be. So call Jeff, tell him that we're more consistent than him because whatever he did tonight, he did not get on a jet ski. And at least we provide what we say we're going to provide. Jeff did not get on a jet ski to ride to his garage, and I am pissed off.
I can ride a bike into my podcast next go around if needed. Yeah, for next, which is when we're going to talk to Sarah. So I'm sure she'll hate that. But yeah,
I like the idea that I was just going to say, I like the idea for $20 patrons. They get a video of Alexa riding in on a bicycle for a podcast. That's literally all the $20 patrons get, but you get one a month.
It's actually, and we don't even do Survivor trivia. It's just a 30-second video of me riding a bike, and then that's all you get.
I love that.
All right, we've got some good stuff. Phil, anything else we missed, or do we wrap this up?
No, I mean, look, we always talked about last year. I said the Arya Stark quote, what's east of Essos, what's west of Westeros, like all of that. And we said, what's past season 40. Right now it's unclear, but the one thing that is certain is Jeff and Survivor want it to happen. CBS wants it to happen. People are going to do everything they can to make this type of thing happen. And, every day just seems a little bit more, it seems a little bit more positive than the last. So hopefully we get something sooner than later, but either way, Alexa and I will continue putting stuff out. And then, we'll see how this Once Upon an Island thing goes. And if after 10 weeks, you guys are all tired of us, maybe we'll just disappear forever. But until then, Until then,
you're going to get way too much of us.
You're going to get at least one podcast from us every week during this off season. And there's going to be some weeks where you're probably going to be getting 2 or 3. So buckle in. It's going to be exciting.
It's going to be great, everybody. So we will be back this coming Monday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern time, talking to the Sarah Lucina from Survivor Cagayan, Survivor Game Changers, and Survivor Winners at War. Make sure to tune in for that. In the meantime, follow us on all forms of social media. Rate us 5 stars on iTunes, because I haven't checked those ratings in a little while. Tell your friends. I just got a DM on Instagram from one of our subscribers. He was the 36th subscriber of this podcast, which is way before I was around. And now that we're at over 8,000, this has been really, really incredible. And this season has just been absolutely fantastic. So we can only thank you guys for that. So keep it coming. Obviously, if there's anything that you guys think that we could do better, do more of, if that involves riding a unicycle, I can certainly learn how to do that. But in the meantime, wash your hands. We're going to get through this, and we will see you all on Monday.
Bye.